Japan's former princess arrived in New York City today after leaving the royal family for a new life.
18 years ago, Japanese Princess Nori gave up her royal title to marry a commoner. In the eyes of her family, marrying outside royalty was unthinkable, especially for a woman, but she did it anyway. Now, 18 years later, when we see her today, we are absolutely shocked. Is this really the same Princess Nori? What exactly happened to her? Where is she now? A princess with a plan. Before we show you the current state of Princess Nori, you need to understand the real reason why she gave up her royal life and title. Princess Nori, also known as Sayako Kuroda after her marriage, was never a typical royal who simply followed the traditional path. Right from the beginning, she had a plan of her own. Growing up in the Gakushuin school in Tokyo, which is famous for educating aristocrats and the imperial family, she was groomed for a life within the royal spotlight. The school prepared her academically, yes, but it also instilled in her a deep understanding of her cultural and social responsibilities. But she also wanted to do so much more than just become another figure in the imperial family. It is important to know that, while many expected her to stick to tradition, like getting married, settle into a more private life, and continue fulfilling her royal duties, Princess Nori had other ideas. From a young age, she had a close bond with her mother, Empress Michiko. They often traveled together for years, especially during her elementary school years. This close connection allowed her to see the world beyond the palace walls, protected from the constant media scrutiny. It was an experience that shaped her perspective on her role in the imperial family, but also gave her a sense of independence. As a teenager, Nori began to explore her cultural roots through traditional Japanese arts. One of her interests was Japanese dance, which she used to express herself in a deeply personal, artistic way. She even performed publicly at the National Theater, which only added to her growing popularity with the public. People admired her grace and elegance, but they probably didn't realize that there was more going on inside her mind than just to continue dancing. Despite her public appearances and royal duties, there were moments when the pressures of royal life became overwhelming. Growing up in Togu Palace, where she was waited on hand and foot by palace staff, she had a sheltered upbringing. She had servants at her beck and call, and a personal driver to take her anywhere. So, she didn't exactly experience the world like most of us do. Her father, Emperor Akihito, affectionately nicknamed her Miss Don't Mind, referring to her easygoing attitude toward the little things in life. But even with this relaxed persona, there were times when Nori felt the weight of her royal status. Like most royals, Nori's education was no joke. After high school, she enrolled at Gakushuin University, where she majored in Japanese language and literature. This decision might seem typical for someone of her background, but it actually highlighted her desire to connect deeply with her cultural heritage. Her academic achievements were impressive, but they were not the only thing she had in mind for her future. Her life changed tremendously when her father sat on the throne in 1989 after the passing of Emperor Showa. Princess Nori was now the daughter of the emperor, and with that came a set of expectations. Still, rather than being overwhelmed by the pressures, she found her own way to contribute to society. She began working as a research assistant at the Yamashina Institute for Ornithology. Here, she became the first Japanese princess to ever hold a paying job. Her work at the institute reflected her love for nature and wildlife, especially birds like kingfishers. 2 days a week, she dedicated herself to this passion, focusing on bird sightings around the Imperial Palace and the Akasaka estate. It was clear that Nori was not going to sit idle and live the stereotypical life of a royal. She also represented Japan abroad as she would travel solo to several countries. This showed us her capability to handle diplomatic duties. But while she was busy fulfilling her royal obligations, she also had a personal mission. Nori was deeply involved in charitable activities, particularly in the training and placement of guide dogs for the visually impaired. This was something close to her heart, because through this work, she connected with people who faced real struggles and found joy in helping them find independence with the assistance of guide dogs. Family, however, remained a central part of her life. She admired the strong bond between her parents, especially their ability to support each other through thick and thin. Seeing their relationship firsthand shaped her views on love and marriage. She wanted that kind of love for herself, and she was not willing to settle for anything less. So who did she finally choose to marry? What was so special about him? Falling in love against the odds. While Princess Nori was busy with self-improvement and community work, fate had other plans. This is when Yoshiki Kuroda entered her life, the man who would eventually steal her heart. Now, The details of their first meeting are a bit fuzzy. They have not released the details to the public, but that only adds to the intrigue. Maybe it was at a charity event, during a community service project, or even just a chance encounter at a park. Regardless of where it happened, the chemistry between them was undeniable. It sparked a love story that would challenge the boundaries of her royal life. Their relationship started slowly, back when Nori was still finding herself during her college years. Yoshiki was different from the royals she was used to. He was not chasing fame or fortune. He was just a city planner, a practical guy who cared about making a difference. He was already making a name for himself working at the Tokyo metropolitan government, where his focus was on urban development. And the shocking thing is that instead of taking a big corporate job at a place like Tokyo, he chose to live in a modest apartment with his mom, all so he could focus on public service. So this was a guy who had his priorities straight. Nori and Yoshiki's connection was not instant fireworks. At first, they were just friends. Their bond grew slowly over time, built on mutual respect. It was not until 2003, at an event organized by Nori's brother, Prince Fumihito, that they reconnected in a meaningful way. After this casual meetup, both realized that there was something more between them now. Yoshiki was not new to the royal family either. He had been friends with Prince Fumihito since their school days at Gakushuin, where many of Japan's future leaders are educated. Yoshiki often visited the royal residences, and he and Nori had crossed paths many times before, but this time, their bond deepened. By 2004, their relationship grew stronger even more, and it was not long before they decided to take things to the next level. In December of that year, they announced their engagement, and it was a big deal. The media was all over it, as you would expect when the emperor's daughter was about to marry a commoner. At the press conference, Nori made it clear that she wanted Yoshiki to be treated with respect and asked the media to leave him alone. She was protective of their relationship, and that press conference showed just how much she cared. One of the sweetest moments from their relationship is when Nori recalls how she could never forget Yoshiki's friendly smile from one of their reunions. It was a small but meaningful memory that showed just how much he meant to her. Their conversations soon turned toward marriage, and it felt like the natural next step. Yoshiki proposed to Nori during a tea gathering at Prince Aoi's house, marking the start of their new chapter together. But Nori knew that marrying Yoshiki meant leaving the Imperial family behind. It was a huge step, one that came with excitement, but also some nerves. Still, she was ready for it. She had made up her mind. Love and happiness were more important than any royal title. But was she able to manage her life beyond the palace? Life beyond the palace. If you are thinking Yoshiki gave her the royal life that Nori had left behind, you are wrong. Yoshiki Kuroda was not from some noble family or rolling in wealth. He was just a regular guy with a modest income. But that didn't stop Princess Nori from falling head over heels for him. She wanted to marry him and was ready to bear living in any circumstances. The surprising thing is that the palace didn't put up much of a fight. However, there was a small problem. If she married a commoner, she would have to give up her royal status and all the perks that came with it. Now, you would think that might give her pause, right? Not at all. For Nori, the luxurious life in the palace was not something she was attached to. She had always felt a bit restricted by all the formality. So, when it came down to it, love won. At 35, she tied the knot with Yoshiki, who was 39 at the time. Their wedding in 2005 was pretty low-key for someone of her status. Instead of going for the traditional, super elaborate 12-layer kimono, Nori chose a simple yet elegant white silk dress. Even her accessories were minimal. She just wore a pearl necklace to keep things classy. Yoshiki showed up in a morning suit, keeping it simple too. The wedding had about 120 guests, which is practically tiny compared to usual royal standards. The event was not the spectacle many expected, and even the media coverage didn't spark much excitement from the Japanese public. And now the interesting thing is that Nori didn't mind walking away from the royal life. She embraced it. She took driving lessons, did her own shopping, and started handling everyday household tasks like cooking and cleaning. It was not easy at first, as expected. She went from palace life to managing everything herself, but she adapted. She found strength in this new life. She began learning to balance the mundane with newfound independence. Even though she was happy with her new life, the people of Japan weren't. Why were they so bothered that Princess Nori left her royal title? The legacy of Japan's royal family. The Japanese Imperial House is one of the oldest hereditary monarchies in the world. It has always represented deep-rooted traditions and cultural significance. It is believed to go back as far as 97 BC, starting with Emperor Shugen, which marked the beginning of a long history closely tied to Japan's identity. For centuries, Japanese rulers were seen as gods. The imperial family was considered direct descendants of Amaterasu, the sun goddess in Shinto belief. But things went haywire after World War II. When Japan surrendered in 1945, Emperor Hirohito made an announcement that shook the nation. He declared he was no longer a divine figure. People were shocked. The belief that the emperor was a god came crashing down, and that totally shifted how the Japanese viewed the monarchy. A couple of years later, in 1947, the Japanese constitution cemented the royal family's role as purely ceremonial. The emperor had no real political power anymore. He became a symbol of the country and unity for the people. Then, in 2019, Emperor Akihito stepped down from the throne due to health issues, and his son, Naruhito, took over. Naruhito's reign symbolized a new chapter for the imperial family, as he tried to modernize the monarchy and make it more relatable to the people. He started getting involved in public events, trying to strengthen the connection between the royal family and the Japanese public. But let's be real, being a royal comes with its own set of problems, especially when it comes to the future of the throne. But we have seen in recent years that the royal family has been trying to break free of the old, meaningless traditions. They have clearly stepped away from old traditions, particularly when it comes to marriage. Marrying commoners has been a viral topic, especially since there is already a shortage of male heirs. This has started a lot of debate about what the future holds for the imperial lineage. Now, speaking of breaking free from tradition, let's talk about Emperor Akihito. This guy made headlines when he became the first Japanese emperor to marry a commoner, Michiko Shota, back in 1959. It was a huge deal because, for over 2,600 years, emperors had always married aristocrats or other royals. Akihito broke the mold, and it was more than just a love story. It reflected the societal changes happening in Japan post-World War II. People were starting to think differently, and Akihito's marriage to Michiko symbolized that shift. So how did Michiko and her now husband meet? Their first meeting was as glamorous as any kind would have arranged. It was not some fancy royal event. It was on a tennis court in 1957. Michiko, coming from a regular background and having been educated in a Catholic school, was seen as unworthy by many conservatives. They thought she was not good enough to marry the crown prince. Empress Kojun, Akihito's mom, was especially against the marriage. She thought Michiko would tarnish the family's reputation, and that caused a lot of tension within the royal family. To protect Michiko from all the drama, she was sent to Brussels in 1958, away from the public eye. It was not an easy time for her. However, King Baudouin of Belgium stepped in and gave some advice that changed the course of history. He told the emperor that a happy crown prince would be far more beneficial to the monarchy than one forced into a miserable, arranged marriage. That advice worked, and the Imperial Household Council eventually approved the engagement. Their wedding was a monumental moment, not just for Akihito and Michiko, but for the Japanese monarchy. It was a signal that times were changing and that the imperial family was slowly modernizing. So what was the fans' reaction? Akihito and Michiko's marriage was widely covered by the media, and it captivated the public's attention. For the first time, a commoner had married into the imperial family, and it felt like a fairy tale. But it was also a step forward for the monarchy, making it more relatable to the people. This union marked a shift in the public's perception of the imperial family, making them feel more human and more approachable. They had 3 children, all of whom played significant roles in shaping the future of the imperial family. Their oldest son, Naruhito, took the throne after Akihito's abdication, becoming the 126th emperor of Japan. Then there's Fumihito, their second son, who became crown prince after Naruhito's ascension, ensuring the continuity of the imperial lineage. And finally, their youngest, Princess Sayako, who, as we know, chose love over royalty, marrying a commoner and leaving the imperial family behind. Princess Sayako, or Princess Nori as she is also known, was born in 1969 and grew up under the watchful eye of the public. Everyone was curious about what her future in the imperial family would look like. But fate had other plans, and she would eventually walk away from the royal life, following in her father's footsteps of breaking tradition. While her parents' marriage was seen as revolutionary, hers would take things even further. She gave up everything, including her title, her status, her royal privileges, all for love. So, was it the right decision? Where is she now? 18 years after stepping down from her royal status, Sayako Kuroda, who is no longer a princess, and her husband, Yoshiki, are living a happy life. This lovely couple is still part of the Imperial family's life, but just in a quieter, more civilian way now. They continue to show up for official ceremonies and events, like receptions for visiting royals and heads of state. One big event they attended was Emperor Naruhito's enthronement ceremony in 2019. That was the day we realized that without her royal title, Sayako still remains connected to her family. We have also witnessed Sayako's love for her nieces and nephews. This one time in 2021, her niece Princess Aiko had a coming-of-age ceremony. Aiko borrowed Sayako's own tiara from her 1989 ceremony. These tiaras, which are usually state property, have to be returned if a princess gives up her title like Sayako did when she married a commoner. But in Sayako's case, her parents had paid for the tiara themselves, so she could keep it. When Aiko decided not to have a new tiara made due to the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, she borrowed her aunt's. It was a sweet passing down of tradition, and if you noticed, Sayako and Yoshiki made quite the statement by arriving at the event in a regular car, with Sayako casually sitting up front beside her husband. But life took a serious turn. In 2012, Sayako was appointed High Priestess of the East Shrine, honoring Amaterasu, the sun goddess from whom Japan's imperial line is said to descend. This role made her the emperor's official representative at the shrine. Over the years, Sayako's duties have expanded, and she eventually became the top priestess at the Ise Grand Shrine, which is one of Japan's most sacred sites. She spends several weeks there each year, continuing to perform her spiritual duties. As for Yoshiki, he has also been doing well in his career. In 2021, he was promoted to a general position in urban planning with a nice salary boost. Around the same time, the couple finally finished paying off their home loan, a long 15-year process that marked another step in their civilian life. While they have not had any children, their bond remains strong. Sayako, now 53, has found peace in her life with Yoshiki, appreciating the small joys and valuing love and companionship over any royal title or material wealth. Now the question is, do you think Sayako regrets leaving her princess title? Would you have done it if you had been in her place? Share your opinions with us in the comments below. If you want more shocking updates, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, because we have got a lot more of this. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.